Welcome back to Munchausen's Proxy, where we are hoping to hear any day now that the Gotham Knights has been canned by Nexstar and CW. Until then, on with the torture. Last week was blindingly stupid, which is just me coming up with new and interesting words to put in front of stupid, retarded, and dumb to make things interesting for you to hear me say. And so my brain doesn't seize due to the repetition of so much retardedness. The single glimmer of not retarded in last week's episode was Stephanie going face to face with the monster that is her mother's addiction. And even there, stupid crept in. This week was so cliche-filled it was boring, more so than usual. It was still stupid, which made it worse. It started with a season recap for those who are either just checking in with the show for the first time for some reason, those with memory retention problems, or those who succumbed in episode 1 to the coma in which this show is putting people daft enough to be watching it. Then we see Harvey watching a news report about a body found by a jogger in a park. It is believed to be the body of Cressida. He then opens his briefcase to show his bloodied mask in a plastic bag. And then they go to commercial. Yes, that was it for the beginning scene, because the recap was that long. When we come back, Harvey's assistant is listening to the radio reporting on the murder as he comes out to ask if they have anything on it. She informs him it was done 6 hours before the body was found, it was moved, and Turner is the prime suspect. Anyway, Harvey doesn't believe it, but the assistant argues, especially since anyone killed with a blade on this show is blamed on Turner. Oh, and they magically found his DNA under her fingernails. He goes back into his office and processes his mask for blood samples to test, probably thinking it is Cressida's. In the tower, Stephanie is having a major freakout on the rest of the idiots for leaving Turner with the court. Duela makes sure to let her know she was all for going after Turner, but the other three made her leave with them. Robin tries to explain that they had to, so they could regroup and plan for a rescue. Otherwise, they would be dead and do Turner no good. Duela joins in on slamming them, but Harper tries to get them to move on to the planning stage of the program. However, Robin fires back at Duela that she up and left them at Wayne Tower to fence a watch, but Duela agrees, pointing out that it was Turner who saved her because he would never leave one of them behind. Cullen jumps in to point out they still have time to save him. Then they talk about how they don't know how to save him because they have no idea who the Court of Owl members are. Something I pointed out in last week's review that could have been remedied and would have resulted in nobody being caught by the court. Then Cullen says that the map they stole leads to nowhere because it is just a map of old Gotham. Yay! The next fetch quest has begun. He somehow missed the only non-map mark on the entire map, and Stephanie has to point it out. She guesses that is what the court is looking for. And if this was a show of smart people, the court would have taken a cell pick of the map and already have the Electrum. The idiots decide to go find it themselves. Harper and Stephanie want to trade it for Turner, but Robin thinks that is a bad idea. Something like Electrum in the hands of people like the Court of Owls would only lead to disaster. We finally see Turner tied to a chair in Wayne Manor, for some reason, when his hood is taken off. Lincoln is in his owl mask staring at Turner when Turner starts mouthing off with bravado about how he is not going to join them or give up his friends. They might as well kill him. And I was wishing with all my might that they did and put us out of our misery. But no. Lincoln takes off his mask, saying he doesn't want to kill him. He tells Turner he wants to show Turner the truth behind the mask as he dips a blade into a jar of milky liquid before plunging it into Turner's shoulder. He tells Turner that Bruce Wayne wasn't the man he thought he was, and he thinks Turner really knows that deep down. And let the brainwashing commence. Turner is starting to hallucinate when they come back from commercial. He seems to wake up in an empty Wayne Manor, unbound. He calls out to Lincoln, still with the shallow bravado. He starts wandering around Wayne Manor looking for Lincoln, going in circles, shown by the convenient smear of blood he left on the wall. Bats attack him, and he is suddenly in a room with his real parents, who hug him. Stephanie and Harper, meanwhile, are sneaking onto the site of a proposed geological survey being conducted on the exact spot on the map that had the mark, by a company owned by someone in the McKillen's ledger. Harper suggests using Stephanie as a distraction, sexing up her look so she can distract one of the workers. And the cringe was physically painful to sit through. While Stephanie is using her body to distract one of the workers, Harper steals the radio the crew is using to communicate with their bosses. They listen in as the crew bitches about their futile digging. As they listen, the idiots suggest they could go to the site themselves and look around. Stephanie wonders if Cullen has a pair of work boots and a hard hat, but he calls them over to look at the map. He suggests they might be digging in the wrong place, showing them precise holes punched into the map that nobody noticed before. He thinks the holes are the actual map. He draws them on a paper, and Stephanie suggests connecting them. It turns into the skyline of Gotham. Robin suggests the skyline would lead them to the Electrum, but Duela snarks, saying that would work if the skyline drawn was from the very belfry they stood in, and they time travel back 100 years to find the exact building from old Gotham. This gives Cullen an idea. He guesses Alan Wayne made the map based on an old painting of Gotham, with the mark on the map being the location of the Electrum on the painting. Meanwhile, Turner's parents are doting on him, but he remembers that it isn't real. Then Dad says they are real right now. To him. And I want to vomit. Mom says Bruce gave him a whole new world, helped him forget about them. He tells them he never forgot about them. That is when Dad pounces, saying that if he didn't forget, then why didn't he look for their killer? And I knew this was coming as soon as they showed up on screen. And I also guessed the drug would make him susceptible to turning against Bruce and everyone else. Let the shitting on Batman commence. Then we have Harvey spazzing out in his office when his phone rings. The lab is calling to tell him that the blood sample he sent in was Cressida's. When asked, he tells the tech to file it as additional evidence found at the scene of the crime. He then takes out a video camera and tapes himself saying if anyone is watching it, then he is behind bars for killing Cressida and the mayor, and for framing Turner for the murders. He says that he admits the evidence against him is pretty convincing, but he is recording it to say he is innocent. The idiots have decided to go urban spelunking in an effort to find the Electrum, splitting into two groups. While using comms that magically work underground, while they didn't work at the gathering of the owls last week? Whatever, don't think about it. While using an alloy detector, the high school dropout Harper cobbled together using her phone and another device. She and Stephanie talk about Stephanie's relationship with Turner. Stephanie laughs, telling her he is like a brother to her. That is when Stephanie takes the device away and finds the alloy in the wall of the abandoned subway they are in almost immediately. Harper bashes her way into the wall to find the lockbox with the initials AW carved into it and a lump of rock inside. When they get back to the tower, the idiots are underwhelmed, thinking it would be bigger. Stephanie says it offers humans immortality, so cut it some slack. Duela tries to cut the rock in half with her switchblade. which is beyond idiotic. And it breaks. They talk about what it is worth, and Robin imagines what doctors and scientists could do with it for sick people. Cullen suggests it is just going to sit there collecting dust until they can figure out how to find Turner. Stephanie looks at the alloy detector and comes up with a brilliant idea. Of course! She and Harper start spouting technobabble at each other before they use the radio they stole to figure out where the signals are being sent. They realize it is Wayne Manor. Cullen asks what they do when they get there, and then turns to talk to Duela, but she's already gone, and she took the Electrum with her. Robin goes after her. When she catches up, they shove each other and yell a bit before Robin says she won't let her take the Electrum when they can use it for good. Duela scoffs, saying she doesn't care about other people. She cares about Turner. Cullen breaks in with an idea to do both, save Turner and protect Gotham. When we come back from commercial, we get to see Cullen's idea. He made a fake rock to exchange with the court, and he gives the real one to Robin. As they mobilize to go rescue Turner, the others leave, and Cullen asks about Harper's sudden good mood. He wonders if it doesn't have to do with her spending time with Stephanie. She denies it, of course. Cullen is asking because she has a type for each sex. Himbos for guys, and straight girls for women. He doesn't want her to get hurt. She brushes it off. Back in Delusion Land, Mom is badgering Turner about finding out who killed them. Dad joins in, and when Turner defends himself, they turn on Bruce, asking why he didn't catch their killer. They then suggest that Bruce killed them, which is where we all knew this was leading. When he backs away from them, running away, he always winds up back in the same room, until he finally finds himself in the room with himself. Batman is dead written on the wall over the fireplace. As he keeps hearing "why didn't he," it suddenly morphs into Lincoln's voice. Other court members come in, and Lincoln pushes for an answer about why Batman didn't find his parents' killer. He insinuates that Bruce adopting Turner is a sign of Bruce's guilt. He asks why Turner became an orphan, and Turner answers, quote, "because Batman made me one," unquote. Right off, CW. When we come back from commercial, Lincoln is making his villain speech, trying to hammer home Turner's confusion and disillusionment with Bruce Wayne / Batman. Then he asks him how it felt to kill Talon, seemingly trying to get him to admit he liked it. He then offers Turner a place in the Court of Owls and the position as the new Talon. Meanwhile, the idiots are fighting their way into the mansion. It was not that enthralling, so that's about all I will say about it. Turner declines Lincoln's offer, laughing. Lincoln pushes him to reconsider. That is when Duela and Cullen burst in, Cullen snarking and telling them Turner will be leaving with them through the front door. Lincoln pulls out the knife he used on Turner and she smiles, saying she figured it would be a formal occasion and she dressed accordingly, opening her jacket and pulling on a string attached to a bunch of grenades, a la the Dark Knight movie. Lincoln laughs, saying she must be the Joker's daughter. She responds with, quote, "Anything Daddy can do, I can do better," unquote. Cullen pulls out the box with the fake rock in it, offering it for Turner. Duela warns them that if they try anything, they will be picking up feathers for miles. Lincoln smiles and then slashes Turner's throat, saying if that is really Electrum, then she should heal him before he bleeds out. The two idiots stand there with shocked expressions on their faces when Robin bursts in with the real rock. She offers the rock if she can heal him. Robin rubs it on Turner's neck and it seals the wounds. Lincoln holds out his hand for the Electrum and Robin reluctantly gives it to him. He reminds Turner of his offer before the court members all walk out. Back in the tower, Stephanie hugs Turner the second he comes in. Later, after he cleans up all the blood, she examines his healed wounds. She is shocked that Brody's father is the head of the Court of Owls. He thanks her to deflect from her asking about what Lincoln did or said to him. She offers to talk when he is ready. Harper comes up to see them but stops on the stairs when she sees her holding Turner's hand. Harper turns around and leaves wordlessly, clearly upset. Cullen goes to talk to Robin and convince her she made the right choice. She says it is not exactly what Batman would have done, and the validation starts coming fast and furious. He tells her that she needs to give herself a break, that she saved Turner, and soon she will be writing the playbook for Robin instead of worrying about what Batman would do. She talks about how she always wanted to be a hero, but didn't realize the choices it meant she would have to make. She worries about the consequences of her choice that night. Cullen says he doesn't know what they will be either, but they will keep showing up because Gotham is worth fighting for. And holy shit, is this bad writing. He tells her that she is what is keeping Batman's legacy alive. Then she goes on about how bats are some of the most indomitable hunters in nature, and they only have one true predator: owls. And they just made them more dangerous. And CW needs to hire a zoologist for this show because they keep spouting nonsense about the various animals talked about in this series. Downstairs, Duela is trying to get her grenade jacket off when Turner comes in and offers a hand. She lets him untangle her trigger line and help her off with the jacket. He thanks her, saying he knows she probably had her own agenda, but he is grateful. Duela tells him there was no agenda, just him. And just as they look to be getting ready to kiss, he vomits and starts convulsing, and Duela yells for help. And then we cut back to Harvey, in his office, still spilling his guts to the camera, for almost 3 hours. He says that while he may have been present at the crimes, his mind was not. He has been losing time and waking up in places he doesn't remember going to. He says that whatever is happening during that time, it is not him. And I am not sure why all of that took nearly 3 hours to say. The memory flashes full with 2 recordings as he stops. He plays the other recording, and it is his alter ego. His alter teases him about making the video, but then says he knows Harvey is thinking he is a killer. He reassures him that Harvey Dent is no killer. And that is how they end the show. Unlike the last 2 episodes, which had slightly redeemable scenes, there were none in this episode. It was all complete trash. But let's get specific, shall we? And let's start with Harvey watching the news of Cressida's death. He has the mask he woke up wearing at the end of last episode in an evidence bag in his briefcase. And I said in my last review that it is impossible for him to have blood on that mask if they are trying to say the blood was Cressida's. It implies he killed her, since his hands and clothes were also bloody. However, it looked more like Lincoln killed Cressida. Also, the blood was spattered on the mask, which would not have happened the way she was killed. The only death in that episode that would have resulted in that type of blood pattern was Talon's decapitation. Since the blood wound up being Cressida's, the only way that is possible is if Lincoln is trying to frame Harvey. But then why is Turner once more being used as the suspect du jour for a high-profile blade attack? Turner is not the only person in Gotham who has the ability to pick up a blade and use it in anger. And how does his DNA wind up under her fingernails? She didn't scratch him, and he didn't bleed on her. Is this more of the court framing him for everything under the sun? If so, it is getting weak to the point of ridiculousness. The argument the idiots have when they get back to the tower after losing Turner is tiresome. Stephanie tears into them like she should, and it was mildly amusing to see Duela cheer her on, making sure she knew Duela did not want to leave him behind. But overall, it was just boring. And why is the Court of Owls using Wayne Manor for their Turner drug trip? Why are they even bothering with a high schooler who is now the most wanted man in Gotham? Unless they are somehow hoping to control the Wayne fortune through him, it makes no sense. Which means it makes no sense, because Cressida burned the will, muddying the waters of inheritance. That probably means an adopted son would have shaky ground to stand on, legally speaking, especially since he is accused of killing to inherit. So why? It can't just be to recruit another Talon. There are better, stronger, more expertly trained people out there in the wider world that would make better Talons than a teenager whose main martial art is fencing. Given how retarded the character of Turner Hayes is, his intelligence alone would be a strike against him in any competently run organization. Then again, if last week showed us anything, it is that the Court of Owls is more like a court of brainless twits begging to be caught. Then there is the psychedelic stabbing Lincoln decided to go with in order to f with Turner's minuscule brain. What the hell is with the knife? Are none of the court members doctors or nurses with access to needles? It is almost like Lincoln read the script and knew Robin would show up later to heal him after Lincoln slashed his throat. Otherwise, Lincoln is thrusting a knife into the shoulder of someone he is trying to convince to join them. Because stabbing people is a real good way to get those people to sign up to your secret society of morons. I knew the second Mom and Dad showed up in Turner's hallucination that we would be shitting on Batman this episode. It was the only reason for Lincoln to put Turner through the hallucinations in the first place. Why he wants Turner to believe that Batman killed his parents is beyond me. Unless, of course, the talentless hacks writing this tripe are actually going to put Batman on the hook for killing his parents. At that point, I don't know what David Zaslav and James Gunn are doing. I guess they don't care if failed Batwoman writers are desecrating the only comic book character they still sell comic books with. The whole sequence with the parents was so poorly written and so predictable, I am shocked that even the CW allowed it through an editing phase, never mind actually spent money filming it. Easily the worst scene in this episode, possibly the entire season, was Harper and Stephanie sneaking around the dig site. I think I sprained my facial muscles cringing so hard. That Harper used Stephanie as a distraction was so bad. The interaction the two had beforehand was even worse. That the writers had Harper falling for Stephanie after that scene, I predicted way back in episode 1 or 2. Despite the cattiness between the two characters, it was always going this direction from the moment they announced in the interrogation room that Harper was bisexual. It was obvious it would not be Duela she would wind up with, since it was pretty clear in episode 2 that she would wind up being written into liking Turner eventually. This dig site scene, though, did not meet my expectations for cringe when they would initiate the Harper-Stephanie sequence. No, it exceeded them on a scale I was not prepared for. It was physically and mentally painful to watch. The whole thing slid right into imbecilic when Cullen just so happens to notice holes in the map nobody else noticed. Not even Duela, when she rolled up the map and shoved it up her dress? That it winds up being an outline of Gotham's skyline was just retarded. That you then need another painting to figure out where the Electrum was really buried went straight into brain-dead territory. All of these contrivances rely on humans not accidentally or purposely losing or destroying either the map or the painting the map points to in order to find the Electrum. See my last review for why all of this is so creatively bankrupt. The entire Electrum storyline is just so dumb. By the way, how is Harper a homeless criminal thieving to get by? She should be running her own tech company, or have been snapped up by one and given her own gadget lab to run, given how incredibly intelligent she apparently is. Why do I say that? Because that is the reality of a homeless high school dropout being able to cobble together an alloy detector from scratch that can eliminate the alloys they are not looking for in order to find the Electrum they are looking for. Between Harper coming up with the gadgets and Stephanie being able to hack into anywhere up to and including the banking system, they already should have cleared their names, taken down the Court of Owls, and founded a tech company to rival Apple, Google, and Elon Musk. The fake rock idea was so predictable. The fact that it didn't work was also predictable. The storyline was always going to wind up with the Court of Owls getting their grubby little hands on the Electrum. When Turner finally starts coming out of the hallucination, what the f*** is up with Turner agreeing with Lincoln about Batman killing his parents? What is the foundation of that? Batman did not solve every crime in Gotham. Hell, he didn't even really prove that the court was behind his own parents' murder. If he had, he would have cleared Joe Chill of the crime, instead of letting him sit on death row to rot. Since Turner knew he failed to solve that more personal murder, why would it be a surprise he would fail to solve Turner's parents' murder? I know he was under the influence of a hallucinogenic, but this was still stupid in the extreme. There was no foundation in anything shown this episode to base that on. Hell, there has been nothing shown in this entire season thus far. As a matter of fact, it would make me assume the Court of Owls killed Turner's parents. Why else would they be trying to make Turner think Bruce Wayne was responsible? A more likely reason for Bruce adopting Turner would be feeling responsible for not finding or stopping the killers, especially if Batman was already looking into other crimes that were similar and believed Turner's parents were victims of someone he was trying to catch but failed to. Then we have the final confrontation. Once more, the only good thing in this entire episode was Duela reveling in being the grenade tossed in to cause chaos. This time it was almost literal. However, I have a problem with Turner just standing there like a dolt to let Lincoln slice his throat open with no resistance at all. This is the same kid who went up against Talon a couple of times and lived to tell the tale. But he was going to stand there and let someone who was skewered a few episodes previous to just take a swipe at his throat? Not f***ing likely. And then Robin is Johnny on the spot with the real rock to heal him and then hand it over. And at no point in this episode did it ever occur to them to try to chip a piece off just for in case, beyond Duela stupidly trying to cut it in half with a switchblade. I am sure there was a shop of some kind in that school with tools they could have tried using. If for no other reason than for things like theater and sports like hockey and lacrosse, there would be a shop that would have drills and table saws. Instead, the entire hunk of Electrum is now in the hands of the Court of Owls, who, if they were smart, which they aren't, would have an entire list of underworld assassins and former special forces guys lined up as candidates to become the next Talon, rather than a lanky boy band reject whose martial art stopped being useful a couple of centuries ago. When they get back, Stephanie clinging to Turner makes me question what the hell the writers are doing with those two. At no point in this season has the tone of their relationship been consistent. Sometimes it's not even consistent throughout an episode. That Harper is apparently crushing on Stephanie now that she saw her being flirty, and then gets heartbroken when she comes upon them holding hands in a fairly platonic manner after Turner was abducted, subjected to mental torture via hallucinogenics, and nearly murdered before being saved by the magical bullshit rock that was subsequently handed over to their enemies, was exhausting. By that point, the stupid was so constant and so intense that I was just tired. And Harper being sad to see Stephanie holding Turner's hand was simply one more imbecilic thing to throw on the pile. The pep talk Cullen gives Robin took the cake for bad dialogue. The Harper-Stephanie dig site scene was worse overall, but the dialogue between Cullen and Robin was terrible. Especially the line where he says they will keep showing up because Gotham was worth fighting for. That was another eye-rolling, seizure-inducing atrocity dreamt up by people who have already demonstrated they have no idea what they are doing when it comes to writing. Cullen also trying to say Robin shouldn't worry about going by the book of Batman, but start writing the book of Robin was just one more jab at Batman in an episode that spent a fair bit of its runtime on crapping all over the Dark Knight. Then Turner goes to see Duela. She is trying to untangle the line to her grenade jacket. Something I noticed earlier when she was walking through the mansion is there was zero room in that jacket for grenades. That thing was skin tight. Where the hell were the grenades before they walked in on the court? Like everything else in this show, the showrunners think the audience won't notice the small things they are f***ing up because they are f***ing up so many of the big things. And then, just as the two are looking like they are about to kiss, again, he falls over vomiting and convulsing. Not sure what that is about, and the sneak peek at next week's episode hints it is radiation poisoning. If that is what it is, I'm not buying it. Unless the goo Lincoln dipped his blade in is radioactive, Robin did not have the rock pressed to his neck long enough to poison him if the electrum is radioactive. That is not how radiation works. Also, if it is either of those, what is the Court of Owls doing messing around with radioactive material? That is unnecessarily dangerous and highly unlikely given how fiercely regulated such things are. Not to mention, there are government agencies within Homeland Security whose sole responsibility it is to monitor for radioactive sources showing up in places they don't belong, especially in dense urban areas like Gotham. Assuming, of course, the glimpse of next week is right about the why of Turner's illness. Finally, we have Harvey spending 3 hours recording a confessional that should have taken about 20 minutes tops. I am not sure what he was nattering about for that long, but it couldn't have been overly enthralling for them to show us the beginning and the end that basically covered everything. Then we see his alter's teasing recording of himself talking to Harvey to reassure him he is not a killer. Now, I'm not sure how to take that. Either this is the criminal side of his eventual two-faced persona and not to be trusted, meaning Harvey could be the biggest serial killer in Gotham history, and his alter would tell him he is no killer, or Harvey really isn't a killer but is mixed up in something via his alter, and the alter wants him to know whatever he's thinking is wrong, that there is something more going on. Or, of course, his alter is lying and he killed a bunch of people while Harvey was under. Given what I have said for 2 episodes now about the spatter pattern on the mask, I would be tempted to go with the second option. However, the writers/showrunners on this show are morons, so they have no idea what splatter patterns on a mask mean in the context of a stabbing murder. They could very well have said to the props department, "Hey, we want blood spatter on Harvey's mask to show he killed someone. It'll look cool." Not once would it enter their tiny minds to question if that is what would happen to the blood in the type of stabbing they depicted. Given Turner's DNA wound up under Cressida's fingernails, the blood spatter could be more of the same. A setup to make Harvey and/or GCPD think Harvey had something to do with Cressida's death. One good thing I will say is that Misha Collins playing the alter is the first time in this entire show's run that the acting talent of Misha Collins showed up. I still think the video was stupid and open to way too much interpretation, but at least Misha Collins was not the squinting, bumbling idiot he has portrayed this entire season. If that is what the showrunners are aiming for with Harvey Dent, they are wasting a very talented actor. But then, they had Dougray Scott on Batwoman, and that man looked like he was regretting every second he was on screen in that show. Scott is an excellent actor, and at no point in his run on Batman did it show. Similarly, at no point before Harvey played that video had we seen Misha Collins display his acting talent. At least, at no point did he play Harvey Dent as Harvey Dent should be portrayed. If that is actually what he is being directed to do, then the blame for his performance lies squarely on the directors and/or showrunners' shoulders. And that video of Harvey's alter suggests that is exactly what is going on during shooting on the set of Gotham Knights. The shame of this show is that there was a good concept here. The even bigger shame is that DC didn't know what to do with it, either for this CW series or the video game of the same name that they put out. While the game sucked, this show is so bad that the game developers wanted everyone to know they had nothing to do with the show. After 9 episodes, that has proven to be a smart move. CW's Gotham Knights has been trash from the opening scene, and only twice has that unrelenting barrage of creatively bankrupt shite abated enough to show glimmers of talent in the actors in those scenes before the barrage continued. There were no glimmers in this episode. It was one bit of doggerel after another being acted out by the poor fools who signed on to strut about the stage in an even bigger fool's fantasy. Only Duela showed the faintest spark before being washed away on the tide of imbecility and moronicisms, and that only briefly. This show has gotten exhausting to get through, and even more exhausting to think about when it is finally over. We have yet to hear whether this show has been canceled or not. According to sources, they will likely only bring one of the 2 remaining DC shows back. Either Superman and Lois or Gotham Knights will stay, the other being canceled. An intelligent network would dump Gotham Knights in a hot minute. CW, however, is anything but intelligent. New ownership might change that, but Gotham Knights is still on the air. Not only is it still on the air, but they actually ran a rerun last week of episode 5. As if there were enough people watching this dumpster fire the first time around to make them think running a rerun of the show would draw extra eyeballs, instead of running episode 9 as they should have. Not that I was not grateful for the week off. Nexstar is a company that mostly runs reruns on their other channels that they own. They seem to be heading in that direction with CW as well. I would not be surprised to see them running more unscripted shows on the network as well, possibly licensing stuff from other companies to fill out the schedule. Back in the day, a channel like CW would be filled with independently produced shows made on lower budgets than the mainstream networks, but much of that has gone to streaming companies like Netflix and Amazon. Given how expensive shows like Gotham Knights are to produce, and the downtick in the streaming wars, we might see CW head that way once more. Hopefully without Gotham Knights. That is all I have for you this video. If you like what I do here, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, share the video, and comment down below. I appreciate it all. I will probably have another trailer review or two coming up, and I have some other irons in the fire, so look forward to those soon. Until then, tschüss.